Welcome everybody. My name is Flor Garcia. I serve FIGT as a communications director, and today I have the pleasure to be here with three great professionals in the language field. I'm here with Rita Rosenbach, Aiko Minematsu, and Amy Conroy to talk about language privilege. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know if you want to share with the audience your affiliation with FIGT and your role related to languages. Rita, would you start?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you for inviting me, Flor. I look forward to our panel. So I am the previous vice president of FIGT and been a member for quite a while. In my day-to-day role now, I'm focused on helping parents and educators to raise children to speak more than one language. So I've got my website, Multilingual Parenting, and I've also written a book on the topic, Bringing Up a Bilingual Child. I'm currently participating in an EU-wide project, Peach, which is aiming to support multilingual families within the EU.
That is nice. Yes. Amy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me this morning. I'm thrilled to be in your company. I am a new member of FIGT, having come there by interest of with my professional interest for global parenting. So I founded a blah, 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 intended to spark interest and joy in language learning for young children. And I advocate for multi-language learning in the United States. I'm currently a Spanish teacher as well. And it's important work to me because of the sociocultural competence that I believe learning another language brings to each individual and then into our communities.
Yeah, it is amazing. Aiko, welcome.
Hi,
From Japan, yeah.
Tokyo. Yes, so good evening from Tokyo. My name is Aiko Minematsu. I've been teaching English in Japan for more than 10 years. And right now I'm a lecturer at a university in Tokyo. I teach English to college freshman students. And I'm also a doctoral student at State University in New York. And my research interests are in multilingual education. And I'm also a co-leader of the Japan affiliate of FIGT.
Great. So yes, FIGT family here. It is so nice to lead this topic with you, ladies, and I would like to go ahead and start because time is short and there is so much to talk about. And I'm going to start with something that really touched me personally. A year ago, I watched a TED Talk by Chimamanda Ngozi. She's an author, and she was talking about how our lives and cultures are composed by overlapping stories. So she was talking about the importance of the storytelling that we have told ourselves, that we were told, and that we tell our kids. And she started talking about, she's an African and a lady, and she started talking about how she will write about blonde princesses and eating strawberries and the weather and all that. And it touched my heart because I used to do the same when I was little. And then just as her mother, my mother used to ask me, Flor, why don't you write about mangoes and avocados and, all these guavas? I had many guava trees in my home in Venezuela. And this part of the story that was in front of my eyes, but I kept writing about the princesses in Europe. And then I said, wow, this is, now that I can see it as a grown-up and I'm raising multicultural children, that the story we are told is the story that we believe and that we pass on. And it is well known for many people that sometimes the story has been written and let's not say manipulated, but guided and led by white people, Europeans, Americans. So Rita, you and I have had many talks about this topic, and I really love your input, and I would like you to help me guide this. My kids, raising children, Why narrative? What do we do? How has impacted your life? What can you tell us?
Yes, I have had the same experience. Well, you grew up in Venezuela. I grew up in Finland, now live in the UK. So I have lived in predominantly white environments, and that has definitely impacted me a lot. And it is important for people like us to acknowledge that we have biases. It is anyone telling you I am not biased, they haven't looked into it, because everyone's got biases, and these biases, well, they can be conscious or unconscious. For me, I'm trying to bring my biases to consciousness. I have a reminder in front of me on my wall saying I have to inspect my thoughts and biases every day, because that's the only way I can evolve. And these, especially the unconscious biases, we always pass on to our children, because we don't even realize that they exist. And so and these all, like you speak about the stories that we tell, that we read, the books that we give our children, the language used in these books, and the foremost the pictures that are in there. The pictures tell a very, very strong story. And who is depicted? Are all the children in the books? Who is not in the book? This is so important.
Yeah. I believe the way we speak, the way we use our languages. I was talking to Amy a week or a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying that the ways we express our story and history in a language is very different from the way we express in another language. So the way my history, the history of my country in Spanish sounds and the value it conveys is different from, when it's explained or presented in another language. And I know sometimes we use the English language, for example, to talk about certain episodes and times in history. And when we try to eradicate discrimination or try to not make racial comments or so on, we continue passing the message of segregation and so on. And that, I think that is something that we do sometimes unconsciously, what you said, Rita. So
yeah, absolutely. And we should all, for example, take a look at our children's history books, see how is history written in those books. For example, there can be a section about slave trade, which is it is such, I mean, just that word,
yeah,
it is horrendous, and just the use of kind of giving that as slave trader as an occupation, when it's actually, we are speaking about an enslaver who went to rob normal human beings, mothers, fathers, children, professionals. They didn't go and get slaves, they enslaved the people. So these are kind of the important perspectives that we need to always remember and be aware of how our children are taught.
yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened with my internet, but it says unstable. So
The three of us were all here. So
okay, I want to apologize. I was like, oh, okay, yes. I know, and that's a discussion that I have with my kids. I don't know, Amy, if that's something similar with you. Yeah.
Yeah, Rita, I love that you brought up that example, because that's it's such a really poignant one. My first career was as an archaeologist, and it was there that I first learned that history is told from the eye of the beholder, right? And it is, and as you go through the historic record and the prehistoric record, you find the different stories. So whether you're telling them in English, which is my dominant language, and my native one, or in another language, it really does flavor the story that's told. And I think that Lira Boroditsky has a great TED talk on the power of languages, in sort of using the English language. You know, if I accidentally break a lamp, I might say, oh gosh, I broke the lamp. But in another language, it would actually translate to the lamp was broken, because of the word order and the gender associated with the words. And that has tremendous implications for blame, for responsibility. And I feel like the power of words has never been so imperative to really look at as right now at this point in our history. And again, like bringing in the enslaved conversation. There's another one. I'm so floored by I'm so floored by the recognition that you shouldn't say master bedroom, which seems like a very innocuous sort of description of a home these days. But the relationship that has to the enslaved stories, and the acknowledgement of it, and then the debate over when people don't want to change their vocabulary. Astounding to me as well. So I think that this education and the history behind the words needs to continue and gain momentum with the broader community in general. I mean, because you don't know until you've learned it. But once you've learned it, you should know.
You should know, exactly. When it's brought to your attention, once you share that article with me, I couldn't see those phrases again. You know, because it's like, okay, now I have the information. What do we do with it? And I was reading, talking about information, I was reading about the academic research field, and how many researchers that are English native speakers feel that they have an on-air privilege, because we need to be honest, most of the information in research is written in English. So once you are a native speaker, you're born and you learn the English language at home, you have an advantage over the ones that we speak Spanish or Japanese or Portuguese. It's completely different. Have you experienced this? You as an educator and lecturer and researcher?
Well, actually, I love the fact that you brought up narratives, because in my research right now, I'm exploring the idea of narrative pedagogy, which is an idea to use narratives as a tool, as a pedagogical tool to empower learners. And well, I teach English in Japan, and I grew up in the US, so I didn't learn English in the way that my students did. So actually every day in the classroom, when I face students, my students who are pretty much labeled as non-native English speakers, I have to face the fact that I'm kind of on the oppressor side. So sometimes I feel like I am the oppressor because I'm making them learn English and speak in English when sometimes they don't feel the need to. And so that's why I'm exploring this idea of using narratives, because I feel that I kind of see learning a language as gaining a different voice to express yourself, to explore who you are, and explore the context, the social and historical context in which you live and how you understand the world. So that's what I'm exploring right now. So I just love the fact that you brought up narratives. And I also watched the TED Talk as part of my research.
Yes, and now that you're mentioning that you are sometimes, or you feel sometimes that you're part of the oppressive side, I must tell you, I remember my mother forcing me to learn English since I was little, because you need to. You know, it wasn't about being able to learn another side of the story or multicultural upbringing. It was, you need to, this is your success. This is the language that you were supposed to speak, that you are supposed to speak at work, and your future will be determined by how well you speak English. And I'm like, oh, wow, you know, and that pressure, we grew up in Latin America with that, always looking up to United States, going there, saving money to go there because we needed to speak English.
Exactly. And that's what bothers me the most about the field of English language teaching, because it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot in the field. And it's kind of like addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a really important thing to talk about and to acknowledge, especially as someone teaching English. I feel that it's an important point to acknowledge, in order to teach my students.
Flor, I wanted to add in on that. In America, where there's a rank there. There has been research done on the hierarchy of languages perceived.
Okay.
That's a really interesting thing, because obviously, it's not the same where you're forcing everybody to learn English, because that's the common language. But in the past, only the 1%ers or the immigrants spoke another language. So there's a real value attachment to a foreign language. Yeah. So, and it depends on what that language was when they brought it. So I advocate for Spanish simply because I live in California and it's so close. It seems practical and logical. And there's a lot of pushback at times, whether that's important enough to be included in standard curriculum in the schools. But it was really interesting to me when I brought my child to learn French. Nobody questioned it. Nobody. They thought, oh, how wonderful. What a beautiful language. There was such a different emotional attachment to that language and our mission to learn French as an American than there was when I would bring my family to Mexico to immerse them and put them in school there. And everybody would ask me, why are you doing that? Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's like a hierarchy, no? Rita, I think that you wrote an email to me about that, because it's the language, how Spanish is seen, for example, Spanish in this case that Amy is talking, and other languages. And I see it here in Europe. I was telling you at the beginning of the conversation that in the United States, we live in Texas. And I cannot speak and generalize and make a general statement about the whole state. But speaking Spanish was a very sensitive subject, because it was always speak English, just speak English, no Spanish or no Mexican. And like, well, Mexican is not a language. Mexican is a nationality, a cultural identity. This is Spanish language. So it was always that thing about just speak English at school, by friends, or sometimes the comments of a couple of teachers. Here in Germany, my kids are exotic, because they speak Spanish, and they're like, oh my God, now teach me a couple of sentences so I can go to Mallorca and speak over there. But I see then how, and I don't want to pinpoint a specific nationalities, but how other languages are put aside, or those kids are told, don't use your language, your minority, your home language here, just speak German. So there is something there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you take your child's class for an example, and the let's say most other immigrant children, they will hear how the German speakers admire the Spanish, but no such word would ever have been said about their language. So that's why one of the things I try to tell parents, you need to instill pride in your language and have confidence in your own language, whatever it may be, and pass that on your children so they have that inner confidence, because that can, unfortunately, it is what it is, that can very quickly be crushed by the majority. And it doesn't matter which language where, but it's to have that confidence that my language is as important as any other language. It is as valuable and gives me benefit, because speaking more than one language comes with several benefits. And it doesn't matter which languages you speak. If you are Jules or bilingual in, let's say, Xhosa and Thai, you have a fantastic range, and you get absolutely all the benefits as someone speaking Spanish and English.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that is absolutely true. Amy, I'm curious, why I know Spanish because of the proximity with Mexico, but why would you start? You said that you were an archaeologist. Well, you still are. That's but I mean, why to start this road through languages, and why to bring that to your house, to your kids, and now you are a teacher. So tell me a little bit about that, because I'm very curious. To me, that is you using your privilege to improve and to make the community a better place. So
I feel like my answer is going to be a little personal, because I don't know how to really frame it otherwise. But I guess for me, I do have this privilege, and I look more like I have the privilege that is expected in the United States. But on a personal level, I don't always feel, I think I identify actually more with the hidden diversity of an adult TCK. So I can walk through life as a white woman, but I do know that my other privileges that are attached to me are it could be taken away at any given moment. So the other privileges you might speak of are, finances, location, associations with other people. There are so many privileges to be had. But when I had my children, I didn't want them to have a privilege that was so expendable or so could be taken away by any other person and for any reason. And and so I placed great value on another language for the reasons that Rita, you spoke of, and Aiko, that you're experiencing, that you use every day, is that like it broadens their world so greatly that I wanted to give them, I felt like it was an investment in their cultural capital. So I wanted to give them something that nobody else could ever wrap their hands around and take away and they would have for life. And so that was my personal mission. And then once we experienced how tremendously enriching it was, you can't go back. You just keep diving in further because it brings such wealth to your world that can't be bought and can't be sold. And my kids are so proud of it now. It's very unexpected because they don't look the part, and they love that all the more, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes it unique. That's how my kids feel.
Yeah.
Aiko, you were talking about your students. How do they feel about learning English as a tool to improve their cultural intelligence? How do you feel about bringing the English language to them? You told us a little bit about sometimes the oppressor feeling, that you are on the oppressor side, but also you said that you think and you believe that narrative can enhance someone's life. So how is it? How affects all these train of thoughts of yours and all the research that you have done and you're doing? How does it impact the way that you teach and the way your students receive the language?
Well, I can't speak for all of my students because they're all very different, unique, and they respond in different ways. But one thing that the reason why I'm exploring the idea of using narratives in language learning is that I've always used stories in my language teaching. And this is because I believe that when you talk about, or when you construct a narrative for yourself, you have to figure out who you are, how you want to present yourself, how you see the world. And I think using a language is all about that, expressing yourself and kind of positioning yourself in the way that you want to in the world and in relationship with other people. So that's why I'm kind of exploring that. But one thing that I've found through using stories, so I have my students construct narratives of themselves. For example, this semester we had to go online in a remote learning environment, as with a lot of other universities in the world. And so I had them construct oral histories of their experience of being a college freshman student and starting a college life online remotely and not being able to go on campus. And there were so many enriching stories that I could never even predict or imagine. And I feel like that's where the richness of language learning lies, in being able to tell your story, share your experiences with others, and then also resonate with other stories. So yeah, that's how I see narratives and storytelling and language learning. But I also do feel that telling your story also helps you to be critical of your context. Because as I said, when you construct your own story, you need to kind of figure out who you are in this world and in the socio-cultural, historical context. So I think that's where the idea of privilege kind of connects, because you need to, or when you use a language, you need to become aware of the privilege that you have because you use that language. Yeah. I don't
Absolutely.
know if that's a question.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, and it's that is how that I have a privilege. I speak 3 languages, for example, and that is a privilege. Even if my native language is not English, the fact that I can communicate with you and that we can have this panel and we can bring a message to our audience and to the FIGT family makes it a privilege. So how do I use it? How do I use it? Ladies, we're about to finish our time for this talk, and I would like to hear your final thoughts. How can I use my privilege to improve I don't know, my surroundings? I think about my house. How do I pass that to my kids in the case I'm a mother? Or how do I pass that to my students? Or what do we do? Rita, you write, you're an author. How do I pass that to in a book? What do I use? What do I do with privilege? Talking about the point of view
First
language.
of all, go into yourself. You have to inspect your own biases so you are aware of them, and that's a continuous process. That is not like, okay, I'll take two weeks and I'll investigate my biases. No, that's a lifelong process because they are so deeply ingrained. And then as soon as when you have more consciousness, then question situations. When you are in situations with others, ask the difficult questions. Do not laugh at the jokes that everybody laugh at. For example, making fun of accents or a certain vocabulary because it's from a different country or whatever, how people use English, for example. Do not partake in these, but question and bring your awareness to others, because like you say, being bilingual is a privilege, and we should realize that we should also not discriminate against monolinguals who have grown up in a monolingual environment and never had the chance. Like I and many others, we grew up with the language, so we got them for free. That's an enormous privilege. With that comes also the thing that I probably have an accent in all my languages now. And that's something that I get discriminated for sometimes. And that's another thing that we need to be aware of. Listen to what the person says, not how they're saying it. Listen to the content, not the expression. So I love the quote of always respect the person that speaks with an accent, because that person probably speaks one more language than you do.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, Thank you, Rita. That is, I've been writing down everything. Aiko.
Well, I cannot agree more with what Rita just said, but I would especially maybe emphasize the fact of being self-aware and first acknowledging your own privileges. Because for me as a teacher, that's how I started. I first recognized that I have a privilege in teaching English to my students and that I have the power. I mean, they don't have the power that I do as a teacher teaching English in Japan. So that has been kind of a struggle for me to deal with. And I'm still trying to explore that, I guess. So yes, I think recognizing your own privilege, it's a struggle and it's a lifelong process, as Rita said.
Yes, indeed. Amy.
I was busy taking notes on everything that Rita and Aiko said. Oh, I'm going to double down on that. I recently read a blog that the FIGT research put together by Richard Pierce. And I guess that's the only other thing I would emphasize is I feel like the impact that you have as a mother, so I'm always back to the young children, whether it's my own or other children, is so great. And to utilize it, use that privilege of your relationship and the trust that you already have naturally built in the relationship to give value to another culture or language and share it because of your relationship and your emotional connection, they will also take on your values. So it's a lifelong process.
Yeah. But you said that motherhood can be a privilege. I see it the same way with being a teacher. When I have all those little, and I teach online at the moment, and when I have all those young kids learning with me, I see I have the privilege to enter their house through the computer and teach them my culture and my language. And this is a privilege, and I need to use it for the best. And it is indeed something that can change lives. Ladies, I want to thank you very much for being here with me today. It was lovely to talk to you. It was eye-opening. There is still much to be done, I believe, and I think that we all need, and I can speak for myself, I'm going to be self-aware and every day recognizing and looking inside, reflecting on my own biases, even the ones that I try to put in the back and say, oh no, they're gone. No, I'm going to work on that. And this panel is part of our focus theme of November for FIGT is about privilege. And today we were talking with Rita Rosenbach, Aiko Minematsu, and Amy Conroy about language privilege. Thank you very much. And hopefully we connect again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It's been nice to talk with you all this morning.